And just to let you know, Kimberly, inside of StreamYard, it said 3 p.m. But we're gonna go live anyway now. But on YouTube, it did say 2 p.m. What's happening, everyone? This is Uncle D. How y'all doing? This is July 3rd, 2024, if I may say that. Hope everybody's doing well. And getting ready for a very hot summer. It is hot. Can it be hotter than July in July? Because it is hot. It's hot everywhere. But we're gonna wait just a couple more minutes and we're gonna jump into why I don't celebrate the 4th of July. Or should I say the 4th of July? Which one? Which one is it? I don't know. We have to talk a little bit about that. Welcome everyone. I'm going to give some folks some time to join us. Feel free to leave comments, questions, um, anything that you like on our site, and also make sure you follow us on our YouTube page, Evolving with Uncle D. And so just want to make sure we there. Hey, KK, and all blessings. Thank you for joining us. I see you. Is that Exiles? I guess that's how you pronounce it. Checking out a few things here. Um, and thank you so much. It was just it's a great day. I've been trying to get my workout on lately. I love anyone that knows me knows that I love baseball. And so what I do is when I'm watching my Baltimore Orioles, I try to make sure that I'm riding my stationary bike because I don't want to sit here and watch other people get in shape and I'm sitting here just, falling out. So I'm on my bike, I'm getting a little abs in and, you know, so I'm just having some fun. We're gonna wait one more minute. We're gonna get started. Welcome to Evolving with Uncle D. I'm so glad to see everyone. Hey, Sonia Jackson. I think Myron Hewitt. I think I see you tuning in. Roosevelt Mary. And those of you all that are following me on any of my sites, Uncle Devin Show, or on my YouTube page, Evolving with Uncle D. And I love this idea of evolving because it means that we're not done yet. It means that we are still learning, we're still growing. And that to me is what it's all about. And I love to be able to do that, obviously, when I'm able to talk with other people. So um, today we're going to talk about really the topic is I don't celebrate the 4th of July for these reasons. Um, and I have to admit that pretty much every holiday, because I've done my research and I kind of know the origins of them, I have a very difficult time. I've been doing it. I've been having this for years. Once I came to this understanding, I mean, I wasn't always at the space where I am now, where I don't celebrate many of these holidays. I remember distinctly going downtown here in Washington, D.C. to the fireworks. We sit down there all day long and have our blankets and our food and, my cousins and friends. And then we just stay there until the fireworks. So I haven't always been at this position that I'm in now. But I have to admit that I just like to kind of just stay in and really just use this time to just self-reflect and maybe even just to rest and let it, I'm not trying to be a wet blanket on nobody's 4th of July parade, but I want to share with you uh, why I really don't celebrate the 4th of July. And I'll be curious to know if any of you all do celebrate. I know some people don't necessarily celebrate. They just take it as a day off and it's a day that they can get together with their family and friends. And I get that. We got one comment that came in earlier, and I got to read it because it's a great comment. Jayla Holder said, I hate it. Speaking of 4th of July, it's reckless and loud. It's a day for drinks, or probably drunks, shooting, fireworks, and barbecue accidents, kids drowning, and annoying overcrowded parks. But she says, but family gatherings are great. So what she really wanted to say was, after all that, still bring me a plate. So, but I get it because I live in DC. We have, like many cities, have an issue with gun violence. It's already sickening enough that we hear bullets and all that going on a regular basis. But when you multiply that with fireworks, I mean, it's just it's deafening, and people don't have any conscience on when to stop. So you'll be 2, 3, 4 in the morning, people still firing fireworks. And I know I'm an animal lover, but I don't have a dog. But dog owners tell me that this time of year drives their dogs crazy. There's just the sound and just the stress that it puts on all of them. But that's not why I don't celebrate the 4th of July. I'm gonna give you just one reason right now why I don't celebrate the 4th of July. U.S. history is rooted in theft, lies, war, and exploitation through enslavement and genocide of entire groups of people to satisfy the profit motive. This all it really is a profit motive. And this is because the United States has rewritten history to start with the U.S. Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. So pretty much anything prior to that didn't even exist. And as if the native populations never existed. However, America's history must begin with the African and Native American cultures that discovered the Americas and thrived for thousands of years before European colonialism. There's no way that you can celebrate the birth of the United States and not also be saying that we're celebrating the destruction and the oppression and the genocide of the native peoples of this country. There's no way that you can do it. There's nothing that no one can tell me to make me believe that there's a way that you can do that, because that's the only way that the United States was able to exist. It was through what I call fraud or force. And to maintain such an inaccurate portrayal of history, European historians intentionally created racist facts to justify their thievery. And one of which was that people of color were inferior to Europeans. Now, I'm sure everyone has heard that. And this would suggest that whites were appointed by nature to colonize the vast majority of people throughout the world. One of the things that, what I've come to realize is that, this whole thing about civilizing the so-called savages of the world was really a major part of European expansionism, and they used every tool that they could. They used music, they used art, they used science, they even used religion, and I want to piggyback on that as one of the reasons why I don't celebrate, because you have to understand their history. And you notice I said their history. It's not my history. My history is connected with the native people of this country, not the Europeans who came and stole it. There appears to have been and continues to be a movement within the white Christian conservative community in the United States that identifies European colonialism in North America as the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Okay. Now, in a sermon delivered before the joint session of the U.S. Congress in 1857. Now, we're talking 1857. This was during that time period, when you had the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, whatever, right before that. Well, this was in 1857. Reverend F.E. Pitts of Nashville, Tennessee, delivered a message entitled "The USA in Bible Prophecy." It's not biblical prophecy, it's in Bible prophecy. And it's funny. I found out about this book through my grandmother. My grandmother grew up in a holiness church, I believe, but she always supported and purchased a lot of books, especially from the televangelists. And she had a couple of books, and one of the books, I believe, was this book. And I asked her if I could have it. She said, sure. And Reverend Pitts declared that the landing of the Pilgrim forefathers on Plymouth Rock, November 21st, 1620, was no mere accident. I want to go and continue to see what he said here. This was on page 58 of his book, and this book was published by Artisan Publishers in 2003. And it says that this was Joseph's land. Speaking of Joseph in the Bible, and of it, the patriarch Jacob spoke when he said, "Joseph is the fruitful bowl, even the fruitful bowl by a well, whose branches run all over the wall. They were speaking of, and he quoted Genesis, the book of Genesis 49:22. And so, what this passage suggests is that the genocide of the of the Native Americans, that's the and again, I always say that because Africans were among the first people on this land here, as you know, and so it's we're working together, and we're together with the Native American population. But this passage suggests that the genocide of the Native Americans and the enslavement of Africans that paved the way for the establishment of the U.S. were all sanctioned and supported by God for the fulfillment of biblical prophecy concerning Europe. So what the book actually did is it walked through and it showed there was that book, and there was another book that talked about the United States and Britain in biblical prophecy. Okay. And so I want you to know that for some of you all who may not follow this, this is what's being taught in many of these conservative Christian, white Christian congregations around the country. They truly believe that it was God that gave them the permission to take this land because of their theological background or what have you. And so of course I vehemently disagree with this. And what I had in my book, I wrote a book in 2008, which will explain why I disagree with it. And it's very both historical and biblical in terms of its references. I categorically denied it, that the settlers could have represented the lost sheep of Israel, because the Bible clearly shows that the Israelites could have been any nationality except European. This is a book that I wrote in 2008 called The Way of the Gentiles. The Way of the Gentiles. And I'm grateful to those churches that are using my book right now in their studies, and sharing that information to different places. But when I came to really realize that for many people, the whole concept of the establishment of this country, really, truly, people believe that this was their right, that they have a certain level of superiority over those who were the true owners of this land. There's no way that I can support and endorse that, and will use all my strength and all my might to fight against that type of system. So for me, the 4th of July is not something that I can celebrate, and that's just one of the reasons why. The other major reason is that in 1776, my ancestors were slaves. So how can I sit here and support and celebrate something that didn't impact my people? I like to go back, and I'm sure many of you have seen many copies of this, and maybe others may not be familiar with it. On July 5th, 1852, Frederick Douglass delivered the meaning of July 4th for the Negro. This was his speech. It was a speech that he delivered called The Meaning of July 4th for the Negro. It was in 1852, abolitionist Frederick Douglass delivered his speech at an event commemorating the signing of the Declaration of Independence in Rochester, New York. And part of what Douglass said, and I want to read it, and to me, he was right on point. He said that the rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems where inhumane mockery and sacrilege is irony. So one of the things that I think bothers me the most, and one of the reasons why I prefer to stay in and just kind of stay in my own little cocoon on this day, is that it does become frustrating to see many people whose ancestors couldn't celebrate this day just willingly celebrate without any acknowledgement of what this day truly meant to us. Um, and so, I really will encourage any of you all to take a look, to go and look up Frederick Douglass's uh, speech, "The Meaning of July 4th for the Negro." But also, I want to give a shout out to the Zen Education Project. The Zen Education Project. If you go to Zen is ZINN, it's stands as it's a website for the great historian and scholar Howard Zinn. But Zen ZINN edproject.org. ZINN edproject.org. They have a page that says People's History of 4th of July. And in his book, A People's History of what is it called? The People's History. And I'll have to get his book, which I read years ago, and it was just phenomenal. They put together a number of different stories um, that of things that happen on or around the 4th of July, throughout the United States. And I'm just going to read a few of them. Again, I'm referencing the Zen Project, Zen Education Project, teaching people's history. In 1827, slavery was abolished in New York. It says that on July 4th, 1827, slavery was abolished in New York following the gradual emancipation law that went into effect in 1799. Now let's back up. When was the independence of the United States? 1776. In New York, a northern state, slavery wasn't abolished until 1827. All right. However, historian James Horton explains in a PBS interview, New York continued to benefit economically from the system of human bondage. New York really provided much of the capital that made the plantation economy in the South possible, end quote. So now we're looking at a city and a state in the North that economically benefited from slavery in the South. And I've always maintained, and you're going to hear me continue to mention this, that there is no difference between the North and the South when we look at it historically with the Civil War, just like there's no difference between the fight you see between the Democrats and the Republicans today. They both represent the same system of oppression. It's just one will treat you a little more better than the other one will. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The Zen Project also recognized 1831. William Watkins speaks for Black Americans on Independence Day. Now, I have not looked up. I need to find exactly who William Watkins was, and I should know, but I apologize, I don't. But this is what they have on their site. It says William Watkins wrote an Independence Day lamentation and reflection for Black Americans under the pen name of A Colored Baltimorean. So all my people in Baltimore, I'm sure you may be familiar with this. This was on July 4th, 1831, and I'm going to read just a bit of it. On this great festive and civil and religious liberty, while 10 millions of freemen are celebrating in festive songs of joy, the magnanimous, how you pronounce that? The magnanimous, that's what it is, magnanimous achievements of the departed great, while they are proclaiming in tones of thunder from center to circumference of this widespread union, the self-evident truths, and he has in quotes, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, I, feeling the injustice done me by the laws of my country, retired from the exulting multitude to contemplate the past and present as connected with our history in the land, our nativity. Now, Johns Hopkins University professor Martha Jones, PhD, writes that it was a moment filled with despair and hope in equal measure. His despair was a response to the rise of the colonization movement and Black laws, schemes aimed at so degrading the lives of the former slaves that they would seek refuge in Liberia, Canada, and the Caribbean. Watkins' hope was rooted in the budding social movement, that of abolitionism. There, he found seeds he found seeds of a radical vision that might remake the place of Black people within the United States. And it says here that Watkins was born a free Black man in Baltimore, Maryland in 1826, a cousin of the famous writer Francis Ellen Watkins Harper. He was deeply involved in the Northern abolitionist movement and a contemporary of Frederick Douglass. William Watkins advocated for school integration and a Black militia during the slavery era. And in 1865, he became one of the first Black lawyers in the United States. There you go. So now we know who Watkins is. And continuing on, looking at some more at the Zen Education Project. Let's see what we got here. In 1833, and let me go back. Let me see if we got any other comments. Thank you, Wayne Mathis, for sharing some information. And thank you, Minnie Diggs, for the gift. We really appreciate it. All right. Let's go back to here. See where we are. In 1833, Mohegan Williams Apis jailed for defense of native land. Now, this you need to hear this, and this is pretty standard. This is common practice that you see that happens regularly and still happens. And you'll see that in the many different ways, especially in the political prisoner movement now. But William Apis Monahan, revolutionary and author, worked with what is called the Wampanoag, I believe. And if I don't pronounce that name right, I need to learn that. It shouldn't be no excuse. I should know the names of our native communities without any hesitation. So I need to work on that. But he worked to defend their rights. They would lead what would be called the Meshpi Revolt in 1833 to address the wood poaching issue in their forest. They posted signs declaring it their land. Now that's bold. I love that. Just take it. Take it. It is your land. You don't need no permission. You don't need no committees and, no, this is your land. You do what you want to do on it. They also petitioned Harvard for the reclamation of their meeting house. They exposed Harvard's missionary, the Reverend Phineas Fish, as exploiting the land he was allotted as part of his religious work and demanded he be removed from his post. So now they swinging haymakers. They're calling out. They don't care. You call yourself a minister, a person of God. They were using that religion to steal this land, and they called them out for it. So they enforced their petition regarding wood poaching peacefully. So this was all peaceful. On July 1st, 1833, they unloaded settlers' wagons that were taking wood. The local government arrested Apis and his companions on July 4th, 1833. They were charged with riot, assault, and trespassing on their own community land. So now they were charged. They received sympathy and support from some, including the Barnstable Journal. The journal published the Wampanoag men's own words that compared the Meshep Revolt to the American Revolution, saying, "We unloaded 2 wagons of wood in place of English ships of tea." So if you go back and they just kind of just took that phrase and put their reference to it. Excerpted from the Native News Online. Jeff Biggers explains in Resistance, Reclaiming an American Tradition, that Apis disregarded the charges. So basically gave him the finger. I mean, let's call it what it is. The laws out to be altered without delay, that it was perfectly manifest they were unconstitutional. In my mind, it was no punishment at all, and I am yet to learn what punishment can dismay a man conscious of his own innocence. Lightning, tempest, and battle, wreck, pain, buffeting, and torture have small terror to a pure conscience, end quote. In a dramatic act of nonviolent civil disobedience, Apis remained in jail for several days, gambling that the attention to the Meshep Revolt would gain broader support. Harvard students, including Henry David Thoreau, and I studied David Thoreau because I was a political science major, so it was somebody I really had to study, and I quote him actually in my book. I believe, I think it was Thoreau. I quoted him in my book, The Way of the Gentiles, would take note of Apis's forewarning words of resistance. The controversial Howard appointed minister of Mishap will eventually be replaced. So he got what he wanted. He realized that sometimes going to prison is something that you have to do to fight a noble war. He was able to use that for that purpose. And so I want to thank the Zen Project for this. They have some other great things that happen on here. I mean, on July 4th, 1854, the abolitionists addressed Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society rally. You can go and take a look at that. You can take a look at in 1876, suffragists crashed centennial celebration at Independence Hall to present the Declaration of the Rights of Women. So you got the women's suffrage movement that was saying, "Oh, you know, they're talking about independence, but they ain't even independent. They didn't even free their own mama. So you know they ain't care about me. That's for sure." And so you have that. You have so many more about the a black militia in 1876 that was accused of blocking a road and punished in what they called the Hamburg Massacre. And much more. So I'll make sure I'll put a link in. I'll try to go back and put a link in all of the chats about this, where you can go and take a look at that. So for me, I know that these are some of the reasons why I don't celebrate the 4th of July. I just can't in good conscience, and it's okay. It's okay if you choose to do so. I'm not trying to get in your way about it. I'm using it as a day for me to meditate, to reflect on our history, to study, and we really, 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 really need to understand what's going on right now. I believe the next show that we'll do, I'm gonna focus specifically on the issue with the Supreme Court. I hope you all understand what just happened. I hope you understand the autocracy. I mean, what's really happening in the United States is that it is now they got this little Christian, talking about this Christian movement. They've created this theocracy that now the court is the supreme body in the United States, thanks to a conservative Supreme Court that primarily was put in place by Donald Trump. But then you have on the other end, this presidency. And I know people are saying, "Oh Lord, we can't have someone like Trump come into office because he's already telling you what he's going to do." I don't trust none of them. Right now, President Biden has the power to do whatever he wants to do and not be held accountable. But the one thing you can never forget is that you will always be accountable to the masses of the people. When the people decide to stand up, that's when action is taking place. And the issue is what we will talk about even more throughout these pages, is why they put so much money into the local police forces and these police cities and into the military and all these different entities. It's because they know that it's inevitable. It's almost what do you call it? It's natural that the people will eventually rise up. They just don't know when, and they just prepare for it. And so right now in this country, people are talking about what happened with scholars, but you got to understand, this is just a continuation battle between the North and the South of Europeans. This ain't got nothing to do with anybody else. They're fighting for who's going to be in control of this oppressive system. And right now those who come out of the tradition of the South, now they done gained the power. And those that were representing the North are now scrambling. They're even trying to say, "Hey, look, Biden, you need to sit down because we need to make sure that they win." That's what they're saying. I've maintained, and I said it like I said in the beginning, I don't care if you're a Democrat, I don't care if you're a Republican. Both are our enemies because they both represent a system of capitalism, a system of oppression that really attacks. I mean, it just depends on how you look at it. It's almost like having a slave a liberal or conservative slave master. One of them will treat you a little bit differently, let you come in and have something to eat, maybe not work you as much, whereas the other one don't care. They're going to work you as hard as they want. But the main thing is they both support the system of slavery because it's about economics. And to me, that's where we stand. So I'm going to go ahead and declare that our next discussion we're gonna jump into this whole thing about what just happened with Scouters, and I'm going to connect it back to posts I've already done. You got to go back and take a look at some of the posts I did. What was the post I did that focused on the slaughterhouse cases um, ruling by the Supreme Court? This is the same Supreme Court that considered us 3/5 of a person, that gave us the Dred Scott decision, that said that it was, the separate but unequal facilities. That despite there being the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, and the 14th Amendment, allegedly was supposed to deal with slavery, that amendment has been used more to profit businesses than it has been people of color and people in general. So what you see with the Supreme Court is nothing new. It's a political tool. You see it. It's clear. It's never been anything about justice and fairness or anything like that. And we're going to jump into that next week to talk a little bit about that. And in fact, yeah, it was the 14th Amendment. If you go back and take a look at my post that I did on the 14th Amendment, I talked about the Supreme Court. I talked about a case that I know too well. It's called the slaughterhouse cases. And I know it only because when I was in college, I needed to pass a constitutional law class. And one of the main cases that I really recall was the slaughterhouse cases, where the Supreme Court granted one person in Louisiana the right to all the slaughtering of pigs and chickens and cows. Gave this one person the monopoly to run all the slaughtering in Louisiana. And it pretty much just wiped out all the other individual slaughter houses that they had in Louisiana. This country is built and based on profit, on money, and businesses have run it from the beginning, ran it from the middle, and is running it now. So yeah, go to the post. It was posted on June 6th of 2024. You can go to Uncle Devin Show on any of my social media platforms, or if you're on YouTube, go to Evolving with Uncle D. Evolving with Uncle D, and you can see that and join the discussion. We would love to have some more about that. Also, I mentioned my book. You can go and check out. I have two books. I've been writing about a lot of this going back since 1990. The first book was written in 2002, and the 2002 book represents all the writings that I did starting in 1990. But it's called An Appeal to the African Church in America: Beware of False Prophets. But I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about money. So I spell profits PROFT $. And then the second book, which is a follow-up to the first book, which came out in 2008, is called The Way of the Gentile. You can find both of them on my books page. You can go to Devin L. Walker Books. Devin is spelled Devin. Don't be putting no O in my name. I know some people spell Devin, they be like Devon. No. Devin L. Walker Books. DevinLWalkerBooks.com. And you can find the books there. Right now, The Way of the Gentile is only available on Kindle, but we're going to be getting more copies out soon, hard copies for you to have. But that book right there, the second one, that's the one that I'm going to really have to do a deep dive in to address what's going on, I believe, in Oklahoma, where they're trying to make the Bible mandatory reading in the schools. And they say be careful what you ask for, because there's a when they really truly understand who the Gentiles are, as my book it clearly explains. And I'm not even taking a religious standpoint on it. I'm just looking at it historically. I'm looking at it just from biblical history and anthropological history. When you really see what it says in there, I don't know if they really want this to get out. They want their interpretation of the Bible taught. But we have to be able to teach that truth. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm not going to take too much more of your time. I wish each one of you to be safe, no matter what you do. If you are one to do fireworks, Please don't do it in my neighborhood. I don't want to. I want to rest. I want to relax. But I'm just kidding. But be safe, no matter where you are. Um, we just a couple of I think a week ago here in the Washington D.C. area, a whole apartment complex burnt down because of people doing fireworks, and so and then also be respectful. Make sure you subscribe and share my posts. Definitely, if you can go to Uncle Devin Show, I'm sorry, yeah, Uncle Devin Show, any of the social medias, or Evolving with Uncle D. I'm evolving, y'all. So I'm not acting like I have all the answers. This is just a process, and I'm enjoying the process. Um, and so somebody said I should pray to Trump today. It's very helpful. Oh, that's funny. Um, so nonetheless, thank you all so much. Thank you. I want to give a shout out to I don't know if I can pronounce it. Douglas Carviat for the gift. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That is so. I really am honored for that, and I do due diligence with anything that I receive because I just use it as an opportunity to do more study, to do more research beyond the internet. I'm not a Googler. Most of my research happened long before the internet. I lived in the library in my 20s. My mother was worried about me because she said, you need to go out and socialize, and I was too I was on fire at this point. But oh, Douglas. Okay, Douglas Garland. That's my man, high school classmate. Thank you, Doug. Man, you've been supporting me for a while, and I appreciate that. And back, you remember we were taking the class with oh, what's I can't think of his name. Atia. I can't think of his name. But anyway, we took the class and we've been learning a lot of stuff ever since then. So shout out to my friends and family and at Duval High School, Lanham, Maryland. So listen, I need to sign off here. It's a beautiful day. I'm gonna try to get some exercise. And but if you have any comments, questions, if you have any topics that you think that you would like for me to address, or if you think you make a good guest and want to come on and talk about something, shoot us a message. You can comment on any of these posts. You can send us a private message on any of those posts, or you can just send this message. You can go to drum at theuncledevinshow.com and send us an email, and we would love to hear from you. So again, I do not assume that I have all the answers. I have more to learn than I ever have to teach. So I'm always looking to learn more. Thank you all so much. Be safe. And as I always say, just remember that life is a drum. So beat it.